Good evening, T-Town. My name's Jeff Fouquet, and I want to start by saying I'm not really sure that what I do is poetry, to be real honest with you. I always have a little bit of insecurity when I get up here because I dance a little differently than other people dance. So I want to read 3 poems tonight. The first is just a little bit darker than I usually do. But first of all, does anybody know the name Tyler Clementi? Oh, people. Tyler Clementi was the 18-year-old Rutgers University freshman who on September 28th jumped to his death from the George Washington Bridge because his homosexuality was publicly outed by his Rutgers University dorm mate. And so this is a poem that, it's unlike many poems that I usually write. This is called To the Suicide Kids, and it's for Tyler Clementi. And sometimes we write poetry just because we have something to say. I get it. I've been there a few times, seen that door and felt that strange something calling from the other side. The unknown was never meant to seem so welcoming. But there was a time, not long ago, when we were at the very least comfortable with the unknowns. When profiles didn't require regular updates and databases couldn't be completed by outside sources. Certainly not so invasively as the outing of secrets or the showcasing of another's shame. So Tyler, I guess I just want to say I'm sorry that the world doesn't tolerate anonymity anymore. Because you weren't ready to share your life, someone else's sharing of it gave you no choice but to permanently embrace the only living wish you had and to render yourself silent. My wife's an artist. She's showing at the Jayhawk Tower right now. Her and I are collaborating on a show to celebrate Kansas' 150th anniversary as a state. We hope that you'll come out January 29th, Warehouse 414, and see a show called Postcards from Home. That entire show was inspired by this poem that I wrote about 2 years ago. It's called Wintry History, and it's a little lighter than the last. On a road trip southwest to the town of Council Grove, I scanned the rolling dunes of white snow, obscuring the stubble of winter wheat. Atop each winds a sharp ridge shaped by the currents and care of northwestern winds. In a pasture meant for summer grazing, there are 6-foot drifts built up in swirling patterns against the lonely copse of elm, and not a single animal to be found braving this blustery scene. The trees of shelter belts, remnants of the Dust Bowl, struggle to hold up heavy, frost-bitten appendages as the occasional eastern red cedar scattered along the highway folds its boughs, caked thick with snow and shaped like moose antlers down into the drifts below. And all along the roadside, tidal waves of snow fold over themselves, swallowing miles of barbed wire. Temporary snow shelves suspended for a time before, in some unwitnessed, unremarkable future moment, they'll give in to gravity and silently come to rest in the lower regions of this blanketing winter landscape. Along the winding creek, its flat gray frozen surface resting just beneath the banks, squirrel tracks dot the snow in random patterns around the maple, oak, and sycamore. And somewhere beyond the hills to the west, footfalls away from the tracks he left here. Coyote is still in search of a meal, loping through the snow, masterfully placing his hind paws in the punched out holes vacated by his forepaws just a split second before. As my eyes shift back to the road ahead, the trickster's tracks play games with my mind, and I see my own people pushing west through this brutal winter storm many years ago. Know that under this whitewashed scene, their wagon ruts still cut the earth along this westward trail, and I marvel how beautiful it is that both pushed on through the harsh conditions, desolation, and loneliness in search of an elusive promise that must have always seemed just over the distant hills and the countless miles before them. And now, the grand finale. I'm very excited. This is a character that I've been developing for a few months now, and I'm really excited to introduce him to you. This is somewhere in the area, sort of between prose and fiction. I don't know what it is, and I'm okay with poetry and fiction. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Thank you, Lord. I think you're going to like this guy, although I think you'll be glad that you don't know him. His name's Red Logan. That's the title of the poem. Through the hazy mist of McClellan Trail, just north of the train tracks, Logan steps off the eastbound from Denver on an early October morning, headed home to winter on the res. He jumped the 10:15 the night before to avoid the youngins who ride afternoon rails when their greatest danger is just being caught. Drifting down to the mission on 2nd and Kansas, Logan stands alone while others chat about the nothing that's everything to street people. And two young boys huddled next to, but not in, the soup lines recognize him and nod, their dog at ease between the bindles lying on the grass camp. When he's gone, they'll wonder, this time aloud, how many bums he's sired in or turned out of the traveling life. Still wondering at that night when Logan jungles up with other railroad folk next to an old oil drum cradling a fire, drinks whatever he's picked up along the way, and because he's having a good night, tells stories in bursts of great energy between long pauses that say more. If they were here, city folk would join in our silence, letting Red Logan go, hoping his train reaches its scheduled stop rather than violently raging once more over the broken ties behind him. Hear this story if you never hear his. And city folk, stay out of the jungle.